Good morning, everybody. John Spielkel here from GAI Insights with the Gen AI News briefing, rating your top news essential, important, or optional, putting thoughts in your head and time in your day. And we've got an unbelievable number of things we're going to review today, everything from new models to a whole notion of what the enterprise of the future might look like. We're delighted to have Ram Kadamaraja, founder, CEO of Colaberry, a friend of the firm and so forth. Of course, Adam Rappaport coming from Melbourne, Australia. Luda coming from, I think, Newton, Mass, maybe, or something like that. And me from Chicago. And of course, Ankash, who is only off stage here because he doesn't have enough bandwidth. Okay, I'm going to go for the first article here. Ankash, if you would.
Sure, thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today comes from OpenAI, and it's about the release of their latest model called O3 Mini.
Yeah, very interesting. O3 Mini here, coming back at DeepSeek and others. What do you think here, Adam? You start us off.
I think it's either important or essential. Probably important in the broader landscape, especially, a year ago, this would have been essential news, something of this caliber, but there's so much more competition in the space, and there's so many more models that are competing at this frontier level that I think I'd probably say important overall. So just like O1, which is OpenAI's reasoning model, this O3 Mini is their newest, most cost-efficient reasoning model, and it's available through ChatGPT, I believe only on the Pro subscription, so the $200 a month, and additionally through the API. So I've already been able to hit it, and it works. It works great, as you'd expect. And it's one of the nice things they've implemented is that, as you can see there's 3 levels effectively of reasoning. So you can either call O3 Mini low, medium, or high. And it effectively is telling it, is speed more important to me, or is deeper reasoning more important? And you can pick the right model for the task. So it's nice that they're adding that sort of capability into a reasoning model versus saying, I want to use a reasoning model, or I want to use something like the 4 Omni. But probably overall, it's important news with the new developments out of OpenAI. Who knows what comes after O3 Mini, right? That alludes to the O3 as well, and possibly an O3 Pro. So.
Yeah, I tell you. And also, it's interesting. As I understand it, this doesn't do images. So you use O1 for images. And then also, if you look at where they've optimized, they seem to have optimized toward STEM results as well as coding, which is an interesting direction for, when you think about what
the John, just one thing I forgot I want to mention as well is one of the key things that this has that O1 didn't is the function calling, which enables the reasoning model now to submit forms, communicate through front and back ends, call APIs, and that sort of stuff, which is a very, very important piece of the agentic puzzle. So that's a big deal here.
Absolutely. So Luda, Ram, Paul, what do you guys think?
I think it's important news, if not essential, because of the versatility of this and the cost effectiveness. I wouldn't necessarily go to essential because it's just the first step, but people who have tried it actually rave about it, its capabilities. So maybe essential, but I'm on the fence.
Clearly on the fence. 4 against. Ram, are you going to push us over the fence toward essential, or?
I think it's important. I don't think it's essential. I used it, and it's really, really good. And also in terms of inference, it's the way it's producing the results is like beautiful. Compared to previous versions. And also for people who are looking at it, it's important to kind of like say, to observe that when they are saying that it's delivers exceptional STEM capabilities with particular strength in science, math, and coding, right? So this is basically moving more towards specialization in terms of like the products that they're releasing, right? So this only means that this is just a tip of the iceberg of how more focused and probably more vertical LLMs or specialized LLMs are going to be out there. Maybe it's so that's something to kind of keep in mind. But I would say it's more of on the important side of things, and there are other features that they're rolling out, like APIs, chat completion APIs, assistant APIs, and batch APIs are also they're releasing them for developers to integrate and use it.
All right. So, Paul, the mob is headed to important? Where we direct this here?
Yeah, no, I'm important as well. I mean, obviously, tons of changes going on with the OpenAI. I mean, they're obviously looking for a new sugar daddy with the SoftBank. They announced the joint venture in Japan yesterday. There's rumors in Wall Street about a $15 to $30 billion investment. And there was an AMA on Friday where Sam suggested maybe we need to give our models away for free and look for other resources. So I think from an AI leader, if they're looking for a reasoning model from a leading vendor, this is important.
All right. I was starting to feel toward essential, but the mob has grabbed me back down to important. Important it is. Next, Ankash.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from Google, and it talks about the adversarial misuse of GenAI.
Yeah, this article was assigned to me. Yeah, I think it's very interesting in terms of how Google's laying out their assessment of what has already happened, what the different threat actors are, especially at the nation state level, and goes through really an interesting set of categorizations of what kind of both systematic attacks against Google and its products, as well as information attacks, what they do, the advanced persistent threat and information operations as two different categories. And this is pretty comprehensive in terms of how it lays out, the things that they can talk about publicly. And I think an important part of, the community here. Good news is it seems like they're kind of on top of things. You wouldn't expect anything else from, coming out of Google. But I was going to rate this important for our AI leader as a good resource compendium and set of issues that are only going to grow. So that's where I came down. What do you think, Ron? What do you think? You're out deploying systems here.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's interesting to kind of like, when you look at the first bullet point, they said, okay, we did not observe any original or persistent attempts by threat actors to use prompt attacks or other machine learning focused threats as outlined in security AI framework. It's kind of interesting. Basically, I don't know what this means. Is it are they defending their systems, Google Gemini, and proposing it as very secure system, or in general they are saying that hackers are not sophisticated? So it's a little confusing for me. But I would say this is more. I don't think it's essential reading. Maybe something between optional and important reading if leaders are interested, especially leaders who are focused on security. This would be an important reading. If not, this is optional.
All right, somewhere between important and optional. What do you think?
Was optional, John, if it helps you. It is longish article. It's comprehensive. However, there's nothing really deep in it, except for the hackers are yet not sophisticated, as Ram said. They're trying different things. They're doing research. So I'm not sure that will add much value to the AI leader. That's why I thought optional.
All right, leaning optional here, Paul, Adam.
Optional, I am.
I was on the fence, and even as I hear all this, I think about and to the point about how confusing it is, which leans me back towards important. So the point right here that they say, rather than engineering tailored prompts, threat actors use more basic measures or publicly available jailbait prompts in unsuccessful attempts to bypass the controls. I think most AI leaders probably wouldn't even understand what that sentence means. And for that reason alone, just to understand that they probably wouldn't even be able to tell someone why the threat landscape isn't mature yet.
Right.
Which just shows how little people really understand about this space. And I felt for that reason, as this is fairly comprehensive, it's worth highlighting.
Yeah, I think I'm going to exercise my Republican tendencies here and or Republic tendencies, not trying to be political. We're going to go for important on this one. I think as a good. Remember, important isn't required reading. All right, important is next. Akash.
Okay, the next one comes from semi-analysis, and it talks about the DeepSeek training costs and various other things.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I've been impressed by the semi-analysis folks, and they're these are folks who are deep in terms of what the cost base and compute base is. if you're setting up, new kinds of capabilities and so forth. So, yeah, this interesting article here. What do you think, Ram?
Yeah, so very deep article with a ton of research and like details. Essentially, they're calling that $6 million number that DeepSeek put out is probably they're calling it a bluff, right? So, and based on their analysis, they say that DeepSeek infrastructure is about $1.6 billion with other operational costs almost close to another $1 billion. So, so they're saying that, okay, it's at least $2.5 billion that went into it, sort of. But I feel that it's given the amount of hype around what's going on around DeepSeek and how they are doing, and the potential impact of how the enterprises are considering making their investments. This is an essential read to understand what goes into it, and yeah, so what goes into like adapting a system like this. But in general, the article also appreciates DeepSeek's innovations, and these innovations are bringing the cost down. And they also say one of the interesting thing is towards the end they say the next release could be 5 times lower cost than what it is now. So it's a very interesting, and I would say an essential read for leaders, because this is changing the conversation around adoption of Gen AI.
So if I understand you, Ram, you're making the case for essential on 2 dimensions. One is to really understand what's going on with DeepSeek, and the second is to understand what the new cost and value dynamics are in the inference-led world. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, we got coming out the gates hard here. We got essential. Luda, Paul.
Yeah, I'll jump on the other. Go ahead, Luda.
Go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to jump on the complete other side just to keep things interesting. I think I think from an AI leader, the cost of nuclear plants, the cost of chips, and the cost of whether DeepSeek is lying or not they shouldn't care about. I do think it's interesting from industry standpoint. I think the important thing is this is driving costs down, and in 99.999% of the cases here, I'm certainly recommending that enterprise AI should not use DeepSeek in any way, shape, or form. So I think the only thing that the AI leader should worry about is how does the DeepSeek phenomena affect its pricing with its trusted AI vendors. So optional in my mind.
Yeah, she has an interesting point of view here. The $5 million, saying the $5 million is like saying, you ran 26 miles, but you're, not counting the training and everything else. I think not a bad analogy.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I would not recommend this article for reading. It's too dense. It's long, very, very long. It has good reasoning, but it's somewhat defensive in my mind, even though it's backed with data. So I was optional.
Adam, I was leaning toward essential or important. Where are you on this thing?
I came in as optional, and then after Ram's justification, I raised up to important. Listening to Paul and Luda, I'm leaning back towards optional.
But
it sounds like you're still thinking pretty highly of this, John. So maybe important is the final recommendation.
Yeah, maybe important is sort of the middle ground.
So
but it's a very, very long article.
Yeah, if I can add, I don't think it's about DeepSeek itself, right? It's about the idea that the DeepSeek has unleashed the basically it's emperor's new clothes type of thing. It's like, oh, all these big dollars that people are putting out there, let that not scare you, right? So the costs are coming down, and they're going to come down drastically. So you should make as a leaders, you should probably make better plans around adoption, faster adoption. So that's the type of thought process that I have when I read this. Yes, I do agree it's deep and dense and a lot of data, which is very interesting in terms of just looking at it.
Yeah. See, Ram, I think that article I would rate essential, but that's not what we're looking at here. Yeah, I agree. That's the most important point.
Probably I should write it.
All right.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, I'm going to split the difference. We're going important. Next, Ankaj.
Okay, the next one is a research paper titled Thoughts Are All Over the Place on the Underthinking of Oven-like LLMs.
Yeah, let's see. Adam, what do you think of this one?
It's an interesting piece of research. I'd say it's probably optional for our AI leader. It's good to see that they continue to get better understanding of how these models work and where they fall down and ways to accommodate for it to get better performance. The concept here is that these reasoning models will sometimes, because they're considering lots of options, actually abandon something that would have gotten them the best result. So they're referring to it as underthinking, and it's an important point, and they have some good research here, but it's mostly just that. So I'd say it's optional for our audience.
All right, optional. Interesting. Tencent and Chinese researchers here looking at what's the best way to think about allocation of resources in the context of achieving your goals, which I think is kind of fun. But we got an optional. What do you think, Ram, Paul, Luda?
Yeah, optional.
Yeah, optional for sure. It is still, it's a proposal stage, and they're proposing like some interesting measures. They're calling like thought switching penalty tip as a way to measure that. But yeah, it's optional for it.
It's one of your algorithmic innovations, Paul or John, that will push the LLMs to reason better and produce higher quality. The quality was, the accuracy was quite dramatic in this application. So, but it is a minor piece that will be integrated into LLMs to get us a higher accuracy. So that's
All right. All right, we're heading toward optional, Paul. I can't imagine you pulling this out of the optional pile.
Optional it is.
All right, optional.
Far up.
Whew, thank God I don't have to read it. All right, bye. Next.
Okay, the next one that we have comes from Dwarkesh, and it talks about what fully automated firms will look like.
Yeah, here we have somebody actually quoting Ronald Coase. What an idea. What'd you think, Luda?
Okay, so my thing is triple optional. And it can be made essential if if somebody is thinking about it. It's thought provoking, but what essentially it says, it's, look, why don't we imagine that it's now becomes absolutely very easy to clone your best performance and then clone them at the cost of some compute, right? So then you have this organization that's essentially based on AI, but dramatically so. And then how you actually get the decision making improved at the managerial level, how the dynamics of the society might change when the firms essentially have that. How do they compete, right? It's thought provoking, but it's just, I'm sorry, waste of time. Optional for me.
All right, it only deals with the shape of future society, the shape of future competition, the shape of future economics, and altogether that's optional.
Right, because it doesn't say anything, John. It's an imagination. It's based on a whole bunch of assumptions.
That's how you think about the future, with your imagination.
Well, but I mean, as Paul would say, let me channel Paul. Why don't we focus on what we have and develop more of that stuff versus thinking about the future that might not come?
Yeah. So
we can't think about the future in any other way.
if I may add,
Yeah, go ahead, Ram.
Yeah. So when I shared this article with a couple of my friends who are doing startups, they just were like, "Wow, this is what we are doing. This is what we are building," right? So yeah, it's definitely exciting for people who are trying to like create the future, new products, new services, sort of thing. But for a enterprise leader, I agree with Luda. It's optional at this point of time. It's a little bit far out. I don't know whether far out is 2 years, 6 months, or 5 years, but who knows?
Look, I attended the Sunday AI Club yesterday to hack problem statements in a day, right? It's very, at the moment, it's still pretty basic. Our tools are not quite together. It takes time to really fish them out and put them together. We are at the very beginning of that. So it's just like, but it's thought provoking, John. As I said, can be very optional, or you can rate it as essential.
What do you think?
Look, I want every minute we just talked about this article back. I want every minute we talked about AGI back. You know, most AI leaders don't even have 10% of their employees with secure employee chatbots. Most of them don't have their AI teams aligned with executives. They've got shadow IT going through there. And if they don't really start showing value, they're going to get outmaneuvered or not have a job. So, you know, they should. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox.
Remember, change is a skewed distribution. It's the leaders that make the market different, not the average. So the
Now,
fact
if you don't have a job,
the average intelligence and average strategy is not an indicator to not care about good strategy. Adam, what do you think?
So I can imagine. First of all, I will quote the article directly. Epistemic status: shooting the shit. 25% sure this roughly describes how firms of AGIs will actually work.
Exactly.
So on one hand, I could say he himself concedes that this is total speculation. He doesn't even have a degree of confidence that this is how things are going to go. To the other end, I could say, as fast as this all moving, if someone thinks they're 25% right, that's significant, right? And for that reason, I think it's some interesting thought leadership. It is thought provoking. I could land on important, and when an exec has some time on the weekend to catch up on some reading, this could be an interesting read at that point. I'm not sure I'd put it on the optional pile, but I absolutely couldn't support saying that they all have to read it.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, Vivek is saying, you know, focus on applying. You know, I think that there's this dichotomy that a lot of executives have. Oh, I have to. Let's not think about the academic exercise. Let's, like, you know, inventing the internet or the A-bomb. Let's just worry about what's in front of us, like build more tanks. You know, I forget the name of the Japanese warrior who said, look, the essence of strategy is the close view of distant things and the distant view of close things. And for me, this is a, you know, close view. There's a close view of distant things. All right, I'm going to give this an important, because I think that I really would like to put it essential, but enough already. And the thing, we don't have, the reason I think this is important is, you know, if you're Jamie Dimon, or, you know, you're, I forget the name of the CEO of Moderna, and you think about, okay, what is my organization going to look like? Not so much Dimon, because he's toward the end of his career, but the person takes over after Dimon. You know, the next 5-7 years, we're going to have this kind of transformation in industries. Not next year, but within 5 years. And I think that's important. Anyway, all right.
So, John, I can support important for the point that Ashish is making, that the combined hybrid organization is happening.
Yeah.
And it's important to think as a leader. You need to understand what you can and cannot do. It's almost like immediate implementation of that. And so in that sense, you can skip the other steps of this speculation, but this one you need to think about. So I agree, important.
All righty, important it is. Next.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from AWS, and it talks about how Travelers Insurance is classifying email with Amazon Bedrock and prompt engineering.
All right, Ram, our friends down in Hartford at Travelers, big giant insurance company. What do you think of this story, co-written with them and Amazon? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting use case where they specifically talk about how they are using foundational models for doing the classification work. So usually when you're doing classification, you're doing traditional models. Here they're talking about this use case. They talk about how they're using prompt engineering to make foundational models work as a classification. In this case, they're using Anthropic Claude on AWS Bedrock. An interesting read, I would say, an important for leader to kind of like look at and see like what they are doing, and it's another like Amazon is putting together like really interesting use cases. So this is one of those interesting use cases to look at and pay attention to.
All right. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, I agree with Ram. It's important. And they increased the quality from 68% accuracy to 91. And they detail the technique and organization of how they did it and what they fed the model. I think it's a great case. So I like it. And I think every good case that we can highlight, we should. So I'm certainly important.
Yes, Traveler's on its way to being an organization like one we just talked. No, I'm kidding. The Paul.
To me, absolutely important. I think AI leaders should understand nearly 90% of these detailed case studies AWS is doing. I mean, they're filling our use case up. They're getting rated well. And they go to a level of depth on both the business and technical side that Azure and Google and 99% of the other consultants don't. So important.
Adam, last but not least, where are you coming on this?
I thought it was important because it's such a classic use case. In this diagram right here, you could extrapolate beyond Amazon, beyond Bedrock, beyond Claude, right? You can take any inbound email, split it into the PDF, and use some sort of inference or something to extract the text while you take the email and you put them together with a prompt and pass. Like this flow here as a classic use case should be adopted by every organization someplace as soon as possible. So I thought it was important. And then I started to think possibly essential. If you scroll down further on the page, Ankaj, it then gets into even the prompt engineering. Like it really spells out exactly, just a little further. It talks about the data. There you go. It really spells out exactly how they put this thing together. And it really, it's model agnostic. It's platform agnostic. I think it's not just an outstanding use case, but it's a bit of a playbook. So I started to lean towards essential, actually.
It's a good point, actually, Adam, because every organization in the support side needs this classifier. So it's.
I was doing this for AT&T Wireless in 2001.
Yeah, exactly.
With a Bayesian network. Yeah, like this has been around forever. It's such an important part of our business.
Yeah. I support essential.
Yeah, Ashish would agree that this is
scenario zero. I love it. The next one, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's Ashish, and then Lucinda is.
Yeah, I mean, I can support essential. It's fascinating that you could replace traditional models with just using prompt engineering. So that's fascinating, and yes, I can support essential.
All righty. We have a kernel of a fantastic use case, well described, short, specific, impact. All right, essential it is. Ankash, if you get ready with the thing. Paul, what's up tonight?
Tonight at Learning Lab at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 Pacific, we're going to continue our discussion on what are the actual implications of DeepSeek in terms of your AI deployment. It's continues to be rapid implications around. Today's Wall Street Journal was full of probably 8 articles related to DeepSeek and impact, one of which was driving the price down for AI and for secure employee chatbots. So really important implications on your organization and future pricing trends. So join us tonight.
All righty. So here we have one essential, great new case study, 4 importance and an optional. Lots of reading if you have the time, and a little bit of reading for the essential. And look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Ram, thanks so much for joining us. Always great to have you. And look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. And remember to subscribe. And if get the email at our site, GAIinsights.com newsletter.
Thank you for having me.